First Contact's Price. The hegemony warship Eternal Dawn emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Sol system, its crystalline hull gleaming under the distant sunlight. High Commander Vexthor stood on the bridge, his iridescent scales shifting colors with anticipation. Humanity's home system had been surprisingly easy to find, their radio broadcasts having leaked into space for centuries before they went silent 50 years ago. Status report, Vexthor commanded, his secondary hearts beating in perfect rhythm. No detection of advanced defense systems, Commander, his sensor officer reported. Primitive orbital stations only. No energy shields detected. Their technology appears to be at least 3 centuries behind the hegemony standard. Vexthor's mouth tentacles curled in what passed for a smile among his species. The Hegemony Council had been concerned about these humans when they suddenly went dark, ceasing all transmissions and seemingly vanishing from galactic detection. Many feared they had somehow developed advanced technology in secret, but now it was clear. They were simply another primitive species, ripe for absorption into the hegemony. Send the standard First Contact package, Vexthor ordered. Demand their immediate surrender and integration into the hegemony. Remind them resistance is futile and will result in orbital bombardment of their major population centers. The message was transmitted in every known language the hegemony had decoded from Earth's broadcasts. They waited, watching the blue-green planet spin slowly beneath them. The response came exactly 3 minutes later. "Sir," the communications officer called out, her tentacles twitching nervously. "We're receiving a transmission, but something's wrong. It's coming from behind us." Vexthor spun around just as the space behind the Eternal Dawn began to ripple like water. A massive shape emerged from what appeared to be a fold in space itself, a warship unlike anything the hegemony had ever encountered. It was midnight black, its hull seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. No visible weapons ports or engines could be seen, yet it radiated power in a way that made Vexthor's scales crawl. Hegemony Vessel Eternal Dawn, a calm human voice transmitted on all frequencies. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth spaceship Prometheus. We've been expecting you." "Impossible," Vexthor whispered. "Our scans showed no signs of such technology." "How did?" "Your scans showed exactly what we wanted them to show," Captain Chen interrupted. "Humanity didn't go dark 50 years ago because we were primitive. We went dark because we saw you coming. We've been watching the hegemony for decades, studying your technology, your tactics, your weaknesses, and we've been preparing." The Prometheus moved with impossible grace, somehow maintaining its position relative to the Eternal Dawn without any visible means of propulsion. It was at least 3 times the size of the hegemony vessel, yet it moved like a dancer. "You have 2 options, Commander Vexthor," Chen continued. "You can retreat immediately and inform the hegemony that Earth is off-limits, or you can witness firsthand why we named our ship after a being who stole fire from the gods." Vexthor's pride overtook his growing sense of dread. "You dare threaten the hegemony? We are masters of 1,000 worlds. Your single ship, no matter how advanced, cannot." A beam of pure white light lanced out from the Prometheus, so thin it was barely visible. It passed through the Eternal Dawn's supposedly impenetrable shields as if they didn't exist, cutting a precise circle in the crystalline hull, directly around the bridge. The circular section began to float free, artificial gravity failing. "That was a warning shot." Chen's voice remained calm. "The next one won't be so precise. You have 30 seconds to begin retreat procedures." As his bridge crew frantically worked to seal off the breach and restore systems, Vexthor realized humanity hadn't gone silent because they were primitive. They had gone silent because they were hunting. And the hegemony, in its arrogance, had walked right into their trap. "Full retreat," he ordered, his scales now pale with fear. "Get us out of this system." As the Eternal Dawn limped back into hyperspace, Vexthor knew the galaxy was about to change forever. Humanity hadn't just prepared for first contact, they had prepared to dominate it. And the hegemony had just awakened a sleeping giant. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Captain Chen watched the Hegemony ship flee. "Send word to command," she ordered. "Operation First Light is complete. Begin Phase 2. Throughout the Sol system, thousands of other warships began emerging from their quantum hiding spaces, each one more advanced than the last. Humanity was done hiding. It was time to show the galaxy why they had named their first battleship after one who challenged the gods themselves. The Guardian Protocol. The Hegemony Council chamber erupted in chaos as High Commander Vex Thor's report played on the massive holographic display. Hundreds of representatives from the Hegemony's conquered worlds watched in stunned silence as the recording showed the Earth vessel Prometheus emerging from what appeared to be folded space itself. First Speaker Khazar, his crystalline form pulsing with agitation, raised all four of his limbs for silence. "This is unprecedented," he announced, his voice resonating through the chamber. "In 10,000 years of hegemony rule, no species has ever demonstrated such technological superiority. The humans have made fools of us." Second Speaker Mira hissed, her serpentine form coiling tightly. "While we monitored their primitive broadcasts, they were studying us, learning our weaknesses. The question is, how long have they been watching?" The answer came sooner than anyone expected. Every screen in the chamber suddenly flickered, displaying a new image. The Earth symbol of an olive branch intertwined with a sword. A human figure appeared, dressed in a crisp black uniform, adorned with silver insignias. "Greetings, Hegemony Council. I am Admiral Helena Martins of the Earth Defense Force. We've been monitoring this emergency session, and I believe it's time we had an honest conversation." The chamber erupted again, but Admiral Martinez continued speaking, her voice cutting through the chaos. "For the past 50 years, humanity has maintained a network of quantum-cloaked observation posts throughout hegemony space. We've watched you subjugate peaceful species, strip mine living worlds, and enforce your will through fear and overwhelming force." The holographic display shifted, showing thousands of locations throughout hegemony space where human observers had been hiding in plain sight. "We could have struck at any time," Martinez continued, "but we needed to understand, to learn, to prepare. The Prometheus was not a demonstration of our power, it was a courtesy call." First Speaker Khazar managed to find his voice. "You dare to threaten the hegemony? We control half the galaxy. We have fleets that could darken the skies of every human world." Martinez's expression remained unchanged. "You have fleets of ships using technology we surpassed decades ago. While you were busy maintaining your empire through brute force, humanity was pushing the boundaries of physics itself. We learned to fold space, to manipulate quantum fields, to harness the power of dark energy. But more importantly, we learned from your mistakes." The display changed again, showing images of various species under hegemony rule, their worlds stripped of resources, their people living in fear. "This is not governance, it's parasitism. And it ends today." Throughout hegemony space, thousands of human ships began emerging from quantum shadows. They appeared over every major hegemony world, every fleet staging area, every strategic resource point. Not with weapons charged, but with a presence that could not be ignored. "We call this the Guardian Protocol," Martinez explained. "As of this moment, the hegemony's expansion ends. You will release your client species. You will restore the worlds you've stripped. You will learn to coexist rather than conquer. Or you will learn firsthand why humanity's first response to detecting your civilization was to spend 50 years preparing for war." The council chamber was silent now, every representative watching as human ships took up positions throughout their space. They had never encountered a species that could challenge them, let alone one that had already outmaneuvered them so completely. "This is not an invasion," Martinez continued, her voice softening slightly. "This is an intervention. Humanity has no desire to rule the galaxy. We've seen how well that worked for you. Instead, we offer a choice. Join us in building something better than the hegemony. Help us create a galaxy where species work together, where advancement comes through cooperation rather than conquest." She paused, letting her words sink in, or don't. "But understand that the age of the hegemony's unchallenged dominion is over. You have one standard day to begin the process of releasing your client species. Choose wisely." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. First Speaker Khazar looked out at the representatives of 1,000 conquered worlds, seeing something in their eyes he had never seen before: hope. The hegemony had spent 10,000 years teaching the galaxy that might makes right. Now humanity had appeared with greater might than they had ever known, but offering not conquest, but change. As Khazar watched the human ships hovering silently over their worlds, he realized that the galaxy's greatest power had been hiding in plain sight all along. The choice before them was clear: adapt or fade into obsolescence. The hegemony had just learned that they were no longer the apex predators of the galaxy. That title now belonged to a species that had watched them from the shadows, learned from their mistakes, and emerged not to conquer, but to protect. Turning point. Grand Admiral Xelthar of the hegemony's first strike fleet watched from his flagship as 500 warships dropped out of hyperspace around the Centauri Gateway. His scales gleamed with anticipation under the light of 3 suns. While the Hegemony Council debated humanity's ultimatum, he had gathered every loyalist commander willing to resist this upstart species. "Let's see how these humans fare against real military might," he growled to his bridge crew. Not just a single scout ship, but the full power of a hegemony battle fleet. The Centauri Gateway was the linchpin of faster-than-light travel in this sector. Control it, and you could effectively blockade a quarter of the galaxy. Human ships might be able to fold space, but surely they couldn't protect every trade route, every colony, every strategic point at once. Multiple quantum distortions detected. His sensor officer suddenly called out, "Energy signatures unlike anything in our database." Space itself seemed to shiver as 3 human vessels emerged from nowhere. Not a fleet to match his numbers, just 3 ships. The largest was easily twice the size of his flagship, its black hull adorned with pulsing lines of blue energy. The other 2 were smaller, but no less intimidating. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the ESS Prometheus," a familiar voice transmitted across all frequencies. "You're in violation of the Guardian Protocol. Stand down or be disabled." Xelthar's mouth tentacles curled in rage. One ship was enough to frighten Vexthor, but this is a real fleet. "All ships, battle formations. Show these humans what happens when they challenge." He never finished the sentence. The 2 smaller human vessels suddenly accelerated to impossible speeds, their hulls leaving afterimages as they twisted through space in ways that denied physics. Before the hegemony fleet could even begin to track them, they had passed through their formation. Every ship they passed simply stopped. No explosions, no dramatic effects. Their engines died, their weapons powered down, their communications went silent, like toys whose batteries had been removed. The Prometheus hadn't moved yet, hanging in space like a patient predator. "That was our first warning." Chen's voice came again. "Your ships have been temporarily disabled by targeted quantum field manipulation. No permanent damage, no casualties. Please don't make us escalate this." Xelthar watched in horror as a third of his fleet drifted powerless in space. "All ships, open fire, maximum yield. Destroy that arrogant human vessel." 500 energy beams converged on the Prometheus's position, enough firepower to crack a small moon. The space around the human ship distorted, and every beam seemed to curve around it, continuing into empty space as if the ship wasn't even there. "Very well," Chen sighed. "Initiating response protocol 3. The Prometheus finally moved. Its hull began to glow with that same blue energy, and suddenly space itself seemed to fold around the hegemony fleet. Ships that had been kilometers apart found themselves facing each other. Carefully plotted formations became a tangled mess as space twisted and warped. "What you're experiencing," Chen explained calmly, "is localized space-time manipulation. Your ships are now effectively trapped in a bubble of warped space. You can fire your weapons, but the distorted space means you're more likely to hit your own vessels than us. To demonstrate her point, a hegemony cruiser fired its main gun, only to have the beam curve through the warped space and strike one of its own sister ships. Last chance, Admiral Excelfar, Chen offered. Surrender your fleet and accept the new reality, or we will be forced to demonstrate why humanity chose to hide not out of fear, but out of mercy. Excelfar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. In less than 5 minutes, 3 human ships had neutralized the most powerful fleet in the hegemony. No casualties, no destruction, just complete tactical superiority. How? He whispered. How did you advance so far beyond us? Because we had to, Chen replied, her voice softening slightly. When we first detected the hegemony, we saw what you did to lesser species. We knew that matching your technology wouldn't be enough. We had to surpass it so completely that resistance would be futile. Not to conquer, but to prevent conquest. As Excelfar watched his mighty fleet drift helplessly in twisted space, he finally understood. Humanity hadn't just developed better weapons or stronger shields. They had fundamentally changed the rules of warfare itself. He paused, his pride warring with reality. I surrender my fleet to Earth forces. Wise choice. Admiral, Chen responded. Sometimes the greatest victory comes not from fighting, but from knowing when to stop. Your fleet will be escorted back to hegemony space. Perhaps this can serve as a lesson to others who might resist the change that's coming. As the Prometheus began coordinating the fleet's withdrawal, Excelfar realized that the galaxy's balance of power hadn't just shifted, it had been completely rewritten. And humanity had done it without destroying a single ship or taking a single life. The age of the hegemony was truly over. The age of humanity had begun. The diplomatic dance. The New Earth Embassy on Nexus Station hummed with activity as representatives from 100 worlds gathered for the first Galactic Concordat. The station itself was a marvel of human engineering, existing partially in normal space and partially in quantum space, making it both everywhere and nowhere at once. Ambassador Sarah Chen, newly promoted from her role as captain of the Prometheus, stood at the observation deck watching ships arrive through conventional space and quantum folds alike. Some were the crystalline vessels of the former hegemony, others organic-looking ships of the liberated species, and scattered among them were the sleek black hulls of Earth's guardian fleet. Quite a gathering, a voice said behind her. She turned to see Khazar, the former first speaker of the hegemony, his crystalline form refracting the starlight. A month ago, I would have called this impossible. Change often seems impossible until it happens, Chen replied diplomatically. Then it becomes inevitable. Indeed. Khazar moved to stand beside her. Though some of my people still question whether humanity has the right to enforce such change. And what do you think? Chen asked, genuinely curious. She had studied Khazar's species extensively during humanity's observation period. The crystalline Arctians were capable of remarkable adaptation, literally restructuring themselves in response to new situations. I think Khazar's form shifted slightly, taking on a more relaxed configuration, that the galaxy needed this change. The hegemony had become stagnant. We conquered because we could, not because we should. We stopped growing, stopped innovating. But you humans, he turned to face her directly. You hide for 50 years, advancing your technology not to conquer but to protect. It's fascinating. The observation deck's door slid open as more delegates arrived. Chen recognized Ambassador Lyra of the Meridian Collective, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with barely contained excitement. The Meridians had been one of the first species to embrace human protection, their worlds having suffered particularly harsh treatment under hegemony rule. Ambassador Chen. Lyra's translator conveyed her melodic speech. The preliminary session is about to begin. The free worlds are eager to discuss the proposed Concordat. Chen nodded, straightening her formal uniform. Then let's not keep them waiting. The main chamber of the embassy was a masterpiece of human architectural technology. The room existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously, allowing each species to perceive their own comfortable environment while occupying the same space. To Chen, it appeared as a warm, wood-paneled conference room. To Khazar, it was a crystalline chamber that resonated with his natural frequency. To Lyra, it was a bioluminescent grove. Representatives of the galaxy, Chen began, her words translated perfectly for each species present. We are here to discuss not just peace, but partnership. Humanity revealed itself not to rule, but to protect. The Guardian Protocol was just the beginning. She gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room, showing the galaxy in its entirety. For too long, this galaxy has been divided between conquerors and conquered. The hegemony maintained order through force. We propose something different, order through cooperation. And if we choose not to cooperate, a voice called out. Chen recognized Daxthor, one of the hegemony's more militant commanders. Will you force us to comply, just as we once did? No, Chen replied firmly. Humanity's technology gives us the power to enforce our will, yes. But that would make us no better than the old hegemony. Instead, we offer choices, participate in the Concordat, and benefit from shared knowledge, open trade, and mutual protection. Or maintain isolation, but understand that the exploitation of other species will not be tolerated. Lyra's skin flashed with approval patterns. The Meridian Collective fully supports this proposal. We have seen humanity's commitment to protection without domination. When they liberated our worlds, they offered aid, not demands. Technology sharing, not submission. Khazar's crystalline form resonated in agreement. The reformed Arxian systems also support this initiative. We have learned that true strength comes not from conquest, but from adaptation and cooperation. One by one, representatives spoke, most in favor, some with concerns, but all engaging in real dialogue. Chen watched with carefully contained satisfaction. This was what humanity had worked toward for 50 years, not just the technology to prevent conquest, but the opportunity to forge something new. There will be challenges, she acknowledged. Centuries of mistrust cannot be erased in a day. But humanity commits to transparency in our operations, limitations on our military presence, and technology sharing with all member worlds. We will be guardians, not rulers. The discussions continued for hours, delving into trade agreements, defensive pacts, technology exchange protocols, and governance structures. It was messy, complicated, and occasionally heated, exactly as it should be. As Chen watched former enemies cautiously becoming allies, she remembered something her predecessor had said when humanity first detected the hegemony. Our greatest achievement won't be the technology we develop to protect ourselves. It will be convincing others that protection is better than conquest. The Galactic Concordat was taking its first steps. The age of conquest was ending, and the age of cooperation was beginning. Humanity had changed the galaxy not through superior firepower, but through the radical notion that power itself wasn't the answer. New Dawn. 10 years after the formation of the Galactic Concordat, the Prometheus drifted silently through quantum space, observing the transformation of a world that had once been stripped bare by hegemony mining operations. Below, massive terraforming engines, developed through collaboration between human and Meridian scientists, restored life to the dead planet. Admiral Sarah Chen, now Supreme Guardian of the Concordat fleet, watched the process through the ship's quantum viewing system. The Prometheus had changed little in the past decade, but the galaxy around it had transformed beyond recognition. Restoration of Nexus 7 proceeding ahead of schedule, reported Commander Lyra, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with satisfaction. The Meridian officer had been one of the first non-humans to serve aboard a human vessel. Now, mixed-species crews were the norm throughout the Concordat fleet. The Arxian crystalline matrix technology is accelerating the process beyond our initial estimates, added Science Officer Khazar Jr., his crystalline form humming in harmony with the ship's quantum field. At this rate, the planet will be habitable within 5 years instead of 50. Chen smiled, remembering the early days when such cooperation would have seemed impossible. The hegemony had kept species divided, preventing them from combining their unique strengths. Now, those very differences were driving innovation at an unprecedented rate. "Signal from Concordat Command," announced the communications officer. "Priority 1 transmission from Earth." The quantum display shifted, showing the face of Fleet Admiral Martinez, Chen's old mentor. "Sarah, we need the Prometheus at Earth immediately. We've detected something approaching from intergalactic space. Something big." Chen felt a familiar tension rise in her chest. Hostile. Unknown. But it's like nothing we've seen before. Even our quantum sensors can barely detect it. "We're on our way," Chen replied, then turned to her crew. "All stations, prepare for long-range quantum jump." The Prometheus slipped through folded space, crossing half the galaxy in moments. As they emerged in Earth orbit, Chen saw that they weren't alone. Hundreds of ships from every Concordat species had answered the call, forming a defensive screen around humanity's homeworld. Then they all saw it, a massive distortion in space, larger than any ship or fleet. As they watched, it resolved into a vessel of impossible proportions, its surface shifting and flowing like liquid metal. "Energy readings are off the scale," Khazar Jr. reported, his crystalline form vibrating with excitement. "The quantum signature suggests, by the first crystal, it's from another galaxy." A transmission reached every ship simultaneously, carried on waves of pure quantum energy. "Children of the Milky Way," a chorus of voices spoke as one. "We have watched your evolution with great interest." Chen exchanged glances with her crew. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Galactic Concordat. Identify yourself." "We are the Guardians of Andromeda," the voices replied. "We have observed your species' rise, humanity. How you prepared in secret not to conquer, but to protect. How you used your power not to dominate, but to unite. You have achieved what few young races ever do. True cooperation across species barriers." The massive ship's surface rippled, displaying images from the past decade. Former enemies working together, dead worlds being restored, new technologies born from the combination of different species' knowledge. "We came to test you," the Andromedans continued, "to see if you were ready. There are threats in this universe far greater than the hegemony, forces that consume entire galaxies. We have held them at bay, but we grow weary. We need successors." Chen straightened in her command chair. "Are you saying?" "Yes, we offer humanity and its allies the knowledge of intergalactic travel, and with it, membership in the Universal Guardian Protocol. Your galaxy has proven itself worthy under humanity's guidance." Around Earth, ships of every species moved closer together, former enemies now standing united. Chen looked at her mixed crew, human, Meridian, Arxian, and others, each bringing their own strengths to create something greater than the sum of its parts. "We accept," Chen replied, "on behalf of all Concordat species, not just humanity, but all of us together." "As it should be," the Andromedans approved. "You understand what we learned eons ago. True power lies not in conquest, but in unity. Not in dominance, but in diversity." As the massive ship began transmitting data to the assembled fleet, Chen reflected on how far they had come. Humanity had hidden for 50 years, preparing not for war, but for peace. They had emerged not as conquerors, but as guardians. And now, they and their allies would take that role to a whole new level. The galaxy had changed forever, but the greatest changes were yet to come. A new dawn was rising, not just for humanity, not just for the Concordat, but for all species who chose to stand together against the darkness between the stars. In the end, humanity's greatest achievement hadn't been their advanced technology or their strategic brilliance. It had been their ability to show the galaxy a better way. A way where different species could work together, where power served protection rather than conquest, and where the future was built on cooperation rather than conflict. The Prometheus, first of Earth's guardian ships, had begun this journey. Now, it would help lead them all to an even greater destiny among the stars.